On this episode of HVAC Full Blast, Mary Carter and Stephen Ross are joined by David Holt, Director of Education and Coaching at EGIA, to tackle a conversation every contractor faces: when to repair and when to replace. From technician mindset and homeowner psychology to pricing, options, and trust, this episode digs into how better conversations lead to better decisions and better businesses. Let's get started.
Welcome back to HVAC Full Blast. I'm Mary Carter.
I'm Stephen Ross.
And today we are joined by David Holt of EGIA, who just recently got the new title of Director of Education and Coaching. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Mary, and I look forward to speaking with you fine folks.
Definitely. We're very excited to have you as well. And today we're going to dive into a topic that's getting a lot of attention, and that is the discussion on repair versus replace. Kind of become some buzzwords in our industry, and certainly I always think of it as something that we really want to quantify, but that's so hard to do just because of the nature of selling HVAC systems, right? They come in all different configurations, and all of a sudden this, how do I make sure I'm offering replacements over repairs, or are repairs better? And anyway, a lot of buzzwords around those topics. What do you think of first when you hear repair versus replace?
Well, I think personally, one of the mindset shifts, if you will, that needs to occur in our industry is to recognize that the things that we're talking about, well, number one, the transaction we're talking about is a service tech in a home, usually with a piece of equipment that's not working. Otherwise, the tech wouldn't be there. Could be a maintenance tech, so it could be operational, but just aging significantly and showing signs of death, if you will. So you put yourself in the position of a service technician, number one, having this conversation. We don't want to do anything from an industry standpoint to mess up their reputation, right? Their reputation in the eyes of the homeowner is they are Superman or Superwoman. I mean, they're absolutely, you've come to rescue me. I'm sweating bullets if it's in the middle of the summer, or I'm freezing my tail off if it's in the middle of the winter because my unit's not working. So they're a really highly esteemed player on our team. So as a former contractor, I never wanted to do anything in my dad's business that diminished that respect that the service tech had in the eyes of the homeowner, because I know they are highly, highly, highly esteemed by our customers. And so one of the things that a lot of service techs have in their mind is, if I replace this piece of equipment, that's a sign of my failure to get an old piece of equipment operational. So that Superman cape, they feel like maybe somehow or another it's being taken off. And those companies that really, 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 really push for replace. You're not there to fix it. You're there to replace it, right? It's like that doesn't feel really good to the homeowner, because that comes across, and definitely doesn't feel good to the service tech. Because I tell you, my guys, when we started moving more towards giving them the ability to have this conversation, and this was, of course, way back in the 90s, so this is not a new topic. This has been going on since my grandfather back in the 1950s when he first started his business. This is not a new topic, but it's the nuances are significant. We have to think about, where's the mindset of the homeowner right there? They might have been thinking about a $300 or $400 or $500 repair, and now all of a sudden we're talking about a $3,000 or $4,000 or $10,000 or $20,000 upgrade, because it's not really about replacing. Think about it. The equipment that is broken down, most likely, if it's really old, it's an R22 system on the air conditioning side, right? It's not in warranty anymore. They probably spent thousands of dollars on keeping that old pig alive, when in reality they should have replaced it years ago, but nobody had enough education and confidence to share options with the customer. And if I didn't learn anything working with my dad and running his business back in the 90s, one thing I learned for sure is customers will always surprise you with their decisions when you put them in control of the decision through education.
That's so
right?
interesting. Yeah, well, lots to unpack in there, and we're going to get into all of it. But I love that your initial perspective went from the technician side of the conversation to sort of say, when I hear repair versus replace, I think I want to repair this thing because I can get anything up and running and good and going. I'm usually in the homeowner position thinking, I repair, replace, I don't know, just give me the cheapest thing done. And hopefully that means repair so that it's
Yeah,
easy and we can get this thing up today.
yeah, yeah.
Steven, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I had this like literally this morning. I took a friend to go pick up his car, and the car is probably worth $10,000, $11,000 at the most. And initially, when he took it in, he was having some engine issues. The initial estimate was somewhere around $4,000. So he's faced with this decision, man, the car's only worth 10. Am I going to put four into it? And of course, he's got all the financial issues of man, what do I, if I don't put the four into it, I got to go buy another car, and I probably can't sell this car for 10 because now the engine's got some issues. So he's got all that as background, but then the estimate goes from $4,000 when he leaves it with the mechanic to the mechanic calls him back. It goes all the way up to $8,000
Oh,
to repair this car. He kind of haggles there. You're going to use some refurbished parts and do some of that. That gets it back down to about $5,600. And then when I took him there this morning to pick it up, the car didn't run correctly. And so the technician goes, opens up the hood. And now he's like, yeah, we probably got to do that too. That's another $900. So now he's $5,600 into it, adding another $900. And so you can see how from the buyer's side, I mean, I'm just, there to help out my buddy, but oh my gosh, this is a bad decision. I mean, he should have at the very beginning just said, no, I'm out. But once you're in, then you're emotionally into this repair, and now it just keeps spiraling. So you can see on the homeowner side and the technician side that the technician here seems like a good guy. They're friends. So he's trying to help him out. He's like, oh, I can get the cost down and I can do this. But meanwhile, now 3 or 4 repairs in just to get this thing back running, and we're over $6,000. I mean, it's a disaster. So I think that's the fear. I think that's the fear on the homeowner side. Also the fear on the technician side. I mean, what if we do a major repair and then 6 months later or 3 days later, there's something else. So it can be a mess.
Yeah, and
yeah.
here's the other thing too, and this is unfortunately, it used to be a lot more common, not as common today as it was back then. But back when we used to do time and material service pricing, where we didn't really know what the job was going to be billed out at until we actually did the job, because we didn't know how much time it was going to take, and we didn't necessarily know all the parts we were going to have to replace to fix it. So it was kind of an open-ended contract with the homeowner.
Mm.
And back in the 90s, some smart people out there in the world started saying, wait a minute, if you go to a car dealership, sticking with your car analogy, if you go to a car dealership, they had this book that they could open up and they say, I need to replace this, and it's going to be this much, and that included labor and material. It was already kind of menued out, right? It already had a menu pricing system in essence for the repairs on a vehicle. And some smart people started saying, we could do that same thing for heating and air. So flat rate pricing came into play back in the 90s when I was running Dad's business, and we implemented it in our business. Before we implemented it, I used to get this call all the time. David, if I'd have known it was going to be $750 to repair it, I would have replaced the whole thing.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, now I've already put $750 repair into it. So as a contractor, I'm like, I don't want to walk away from that upgrade, right, from that replacement job. So what do? I credit the $750 towards the job, right? Well, guess who didn't make any money on that job, right? Because I already got the labor, the service tech sitting there, right? I already got the part. I'm not going to, I might pull that part I just put on there. I might pull it back and put it on service trucks. It really didn't have any runtime on it. But, it's really a bad place to be for both the contractor and the homeowner to make a poor financial decision, because that's exactly what that is, Stephen. You're absolutely right. It's a very emotional time frame. And in fact, the thing that's interesting about this particular scenario is it always involves a service tech trying to do what's right for the homeowner. right? They're trying to get the system back up and running as economically as possible. That's how most service techs think. And I understand that completely. And I applaud them for that. I mean, do what you can to help the customer get up and running now, as long as it's safe, as long as it contributes to improved health, as long as it's comfortable, it helps the comfort of the home, and it reduces the operating cost of the system. I'm all in. Do that.
Yeah.
But me just fixing a clunker like your buddy's car, right? I'm sure it was very high efficient on gas mileage, right? Probably
I think
not.
seen better days. It's seen better days
not.
for sure.
Probably not. You know, it probably doesn't have the new technology. Like, one of the best things I love about some of the new technology in automobiles is, like, they got cruise control now that keeps up with the person in front of you. I mean, it's like, wow, man, this adaptive cruise control. I wish I had it on my old Lexus, because it doesn't have it. It's a Lexus, but it doesn't have it because that technology wasn't available when that car was built. You know, it's like, what am I leaving behind as a homeowner? I don't know that, because customers, you know, our customers, our homeowners that we're calling on, and it doesn't matter if it's homeowner or commercial, you know, building, same thing. The technology that's been built since the equipment that we're working on was installed has just gone crazy. I know if my grandfather was alive today and I showed him that I could change the temperature of my house on my phone from anywhere on the planet that I have internet connection to, he'd be like, put me back in that box, man. You're talking crazy. You're talking crazy. Only thing he knew was this thing like this, you know, old T87F Honeywell thermostat. And the thought of him being able to, even when programmable thermostats came back that were clock thermostats where we had pins and stuff like that in the thermostat, he was like, no, that's crazy stuff, man. But the technology has moved in such a way that, you know, we don't know without having a conversation if that homeowner is even interested in better refrigerant as it relates to the environment. How lower utility bills. We know everybody's interested in that. The question is, how interested are they, right? If we don't have the conversation, we're not really changing anything by just resurrecting a dead beast in their home.
Yeah, so let's kind of break down some of these maybe mindsets and what we can do to improve upon some of this line of thinking. Because if your mission is do right by the homeowner, you know, and really set them up well, then sometimes it is repair, sometimes it is replace.
Absolutely.
So how do I navigate this if I'm the technician, but my mission is truly, I just want to do right by every customer and I want them to go with me?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. So there's some key things. There's some key factors. Average age of equipment is without a doubt the number one thing to consider. You look at the age of the equipment compared to what the typical service life of a piece of equipment is for your market, and that changes depending on where you are. If you're on the Gulf Coast, for instance, and you've got an outdoor unit sitting out there in the salt, well, guess what? It's not going to last as long as if it was sitting in Kansas. It's, you know, it's exposed to corrosive salt. And that's not good. I don't care who manufactures the equipment. That's just not good. And they don't last near as long. So we have to consider the location of the equipment. We have to consider the average life of the equipment. And there's lots of studies out there that talk about, you know, anywhere from 7 to 15 years for an outdoor unit, depending on where it is. And certainly, you know, the next door neighbor's got one that was 25 years old, and that happens without a doubt. I know some right here in the neighborhood that I'm living in right now. I'd walk by some of these houses and I'm looking, I'm gonna say, man, I used to sell those in 1990. It's like, how is that thing still here? Right? Well, maybe good maintenance, or maybe they just don't run it at all. Maybe it's in a part of the house that just doesn't get that much call for heating and cooling. I don't know. Or maybe they don't have any money. I don't know if that's the case. Anyway, it's like, how do we get people to look at everything? So age of equipment is one of the key factors. Certainly the cost of the repair. If I'm looking at if I was looking at a $4,000 repair on my wife's Lexus right now, I'd really have to strongly consider driving this thing off a cliff, right? Because it's not worth putting that much money into it. I'd rather put that as a down payment towards something else, right, and get her something more current and so on. But the reality is there's an emotional component to it as well, right? You got situations where, well, if she heard me, and hopefully she won't watch this podcast, if she heard me say get rid of her baby, because that's what she calls it, she'd probably kill me. She said, "Oh no, we have to put a new motor in it. We're putting a new motor in it. I love this car." Okay. She calls it a dumb car. She says, "I've driven these smart cars, right? These smart cars that have all these things that teach me, try to keep me in the lane and all that." She says, "I hate that. I hate that." Right? Okay. We're in our 60s, right? She's caught up in her old way of doing things, but she knows how the vehicle works and she's comfortable with it. So she might be emotionally attached to what's going on, and you know, a service tech at the car dealership would be shaking his head like, "I can't believe this woman's putting this much money in this car." But
Yeah.
if it's an emotional decision, there's a lot of things that happen that don't make any financial sense, right? So I don't think people get that emotionally attached to heating and air systems, although I have had occasion where it was a big deal. It's like, man, my granddad put that in. Well, I can actually say that, right? My granddad did put this in, or my dad put this, whatever. And, that's not common, but for sure, environmental interest, getting the global warming thing under control, getting how much energy am I using and trying to keep my house nice and comfortable. I just upgraded a system at my house and went from 5 tons of cooling on a pretty decent sized house, but it had 5 tons on it. I pulled out 5 tons, only put 3 back. Because when I did load calculus, like I knew this thing was oversized when we bought it, but I just never did anything about it until it finally failed. And when it failed, I right-sized the equipment, and it's been running now since before the summer. And I'm in Georgia, so it got some runtime. My power bill's cut more than 50%. So was that a
Wow.
good financial decision?
Wow.
It is. Yeah, it is.
So, 2 things. First of all, I love the idea of you walking around your neighborhood, just judging all your neighbors, thinking, "I wonder if they have no money." I think that's hilarious. But number
Hey,
2,
hey.
um, there's no one that I know that's better at these emotional conversations than Mr. Stephen Ross. So, Stephen, your hot take on this. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think it's worth thinking through, maybe separating out like, hey, what's the homeowner's thoughts and emotions? What's the tech's thoughts and emotions? And just because it's actually an emotional decision on both sides of that coin. I mean, they trying to understand, hey, how's the technician wired? I know when David, you mentioned you've been doing this since the 90s. I got into heating and air in 2007. So I've seen definitely kind of the cycles. And we are in a cycle right now where more people seem to be opting for repairs rather than replacements. And, if as a business owner, I just stand at the front of the room and I tell my technicians, hey, you need to be offering replacements. Sometimes what that feels like to the technician is I'm pressuring them to do something unethical. So I think the first emotion is trying to get your head around, like, what are we trying to do? How do we think correctly about this issue if I'm the technician? So, David, I know you owned a business for a while. You were a contractor. So put on your contractor hat. I'm a service technician. I work for you. How do you help my mindset? If I'm out there just, the last 25 calls I've done, I repaired them all. You're like, hey, statistically, that's improbable that was the right decision on each of those. So coach me up. What would you say from a mindset standpoint from the technician side?
So that's a great question and a great way to kind of frame it. I think the interesting part when you're dealing with helping people understand a different perspective is to kind of give them some analogies. And one of the things I used to do with my techs, I say, look, imagine we got an intersection, we got 4-way intersection, and there's a traffic light in the middle of that intersection, and we got 2 cars barreling into that corner. We got 4 people standing on each corner, 1 on each corner, right? So I got 4 people. I got 2 people in each car, and there's an accident right in the middle of the intersection. I said, how many different perspectives do we have? Right? Somebody is at fault. But we got 8 different perspectives of this thing because we got 4 people in the car that were seeing their view. We got 4 people on the corners that were seeing their view. And the same traffic accident occurred, but I got 8 different perspectives. I said, so here's what we tried to do with our team is we said, you know what? We want to always look through the eyes of the customer. And we want to provide the products and the services that they need, that they want, but most importantly, what did they deserve? What do they deserve, right? What they need right now is they need the heating and cooling working again, right? So that's what most techs go to, but they stop. They stop at take care of the immediate need, right? Just like if you go into the hospital and you go in through the emergency room, like you were one of the people in those 2 cars, and you're now in the emergency room focuses on stopping the bleeding, right? They stabilize the patient. Well, that's what service techs are kind of used to being, is they're used to being the emergency room technician. And they're going to stabilize the homeowner in this case, right? They're going to stabilize their situation by getting the equipment back up and running, right? They stop the bleeding. Well, the problem is that doesn't rehab the situation. In fact, if you look at a hospital, the smallest part of most hospitals is the emergency room. The biggest part is where they do the rehabilitation, right? And we got our techs to think about, okay, first rule is let's look through the eyes of the homeowner. Let's provide the products and services they need, they want, right? So how do we know what they want, Stephen?
You got to ask.
Oh, wait, we got to have a conversation. Okay.
Yeah.
So I swear you can buy one on Amazon right now. I did buy a crystal ball.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the magic 8-ball, but crystal ball.
I got a crystal ball. I got a crystal ball because I was told that if I had a crystal ball, I could read people's minds. So I bought one. And after 42 years, I still can't read my wife's mind. It does not work. So don't use that. The best way to do it is to ask, right? Is ask, baby, what would you like for Christmas? Don't guess. Ask her what she wants, and you're guaranteed to make her happy. It's a beautiful thing. Anyway, 42 years of marriage, it works.
Hey,
so
we're going to throw in some holiday advice. We're recording this around the holiday season. And so, just pro tip, HVAC Full Blast, just ask.
Yeah, there you go.
That's awesome. 12 things you should buy your wife. Anyway, pro tip. Jewelry always works, just so you know, most of the time anyway.
This is, I can confirm this is correct.
Okay, well, being the resident woman, you could definitely. So need, want, deserve, right? So they want, we got to ask the question. So we have to have a conversation. We can't just make the assumption all they want is to get it fixed, right? But then the third piece that I always focused on and continue to focus on as an educator on this industry is, what does customer deserve?
Mm.
What do they really deserve, right? And we had one answer. At Holt Service Company, all our customers deserve the
best.
Gosh, you must have been to my training. No, I mean, that's the reality. They all deserve the best. The question is, what's best and who decides?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Well, what's best is what's best for them.
Yeah.
But if you don't have complete information, how can you make that decision as a homeowner? So if I don't teach my techs how to educate the customer about what their options are, I mean, imagine that I invited you both to go out to a really nice dinner, and we all showed up at the same restaurant at the same time, and we sat down at the table, and the waiter walked up and looked at me and he said, peanut butter and jelly and a glass of milk. He looked at Mary and he said, you need a pizza and a beer. And he looked at Stephen and said, you need a kale salad and a glass of water. And we're just like,
I would say,
what kind of restaurant is it?
I would say I won.
Yeah, I would say you did win. If you went to my place.
But I'm competitive like that. So yeah.
But here's the funny thing. That's what we do many times in the industry as service techs, when we just decide that the only thing that they need to know about is the repair.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because I really do believe that, what they deserve is the best. And I've always framed that for myself as what they deserve is my best. They deserve me to come in my best self and bring my best. And that means talking about all the options, right? And
that's exactly right.
I do that from a distributor sales level as well. My clients deserve my best. They they want to work with me because they know that we're going to have an honest conversation and we're going to come away with actions and deliverables. But I love the idea too that best also means what's best for them. And I think that's a really interesting way to frame that perspective. So I love that.
Well, you can't solve a problem that you don't know about, right? And the
Mhm.
reality is, if I was standing in a homeowner's house and I'm looking around and I'm trying to make decisions based on what I see, and I'm trying to read their mind without having a conversation, I'm probably going to miss the mark most of the time.
Yeah.
If we fix Mrs. Smith's system and we get it back up and running, and later we find out they've been spending $800 a month on power bills and not being able to afford their medication because they had to pay the power company. And my solution of getting that thing back up and running is continuing the madness. If I've not had the conversation to determine that, oh my gosh, it's a 1,200 square foot house. Do you have like grow lights going on somewhere? Are you growing a cash crop somewhere? I mean, what is consuming all this energy? Well, we know the HVAC systems are one of the biggest consumers of energy in residents. We probably need to figure that out, right? We probably need to say, yeah, you don't need to be running this thing anymore because it's sucking your bank account dry, right? But we can't know that without a conversation. So I think understanding, again, looking at it through the eyes of the homeowner, looking at it through the eyes of the customer, and understanding what's important to them is a critical step that most, I'm just going to say most, technicians miss. They take it upon themselves to fix it without a conversation.
One of the interesting, this kind of goes back to Mary's background at Wells Fargo, but one of the stories that I tell, I was working at a heating and air company, and we had just built a new call center and kind of staffed up. So we had some new people answering the phones, and so I'm in there answering the phones and training somebody, and this lady called in and she said, "Hey, I just want to get a price on a pound of refrigerant." And so she obviously was calling, shop around. And so we got her talking a little bit, asked some questions to get her talking. And she says, yeah, this company came out and said, I needed refrigerant. My unit's out. They quoted me $900 for refrigerant. And I don't get paid for 2 more weeks. So I just need a little bit to get by for 2 weeks. And so just that conversation alone as a training example for the call center, but also then we turn around, it wasn't one of our technicians, but just on the phone, we said, hey, if you've got to put new refrigerant in it and you're completely out, that's a big leak. Now you've got to repair the leak. That's a big repair. If you don't do the repair, you can't put the new refrigerant in. And just on the phone said, hey, would you like to get approved for financing? She said yes, and ballparked it for her over the phone of somewhere between $75 to $100 a month as a monthly payment for a new one. She got approved, and we didn't even send the technician out. We just sent, we sent a technician out, but he just sold her a new unit because she was already approved. And it was just interesting that the company who had been there previously never really even offered that. And then she's been calling around to a dozen heating and air companies, asking every single company, hey, what's your price for a pound of refrigerant? And absolutely nobody up to that point had said, well, that's a terrible idea. Like, we should be talking about financing in a new system. So in that scenario, it was really eye-opening to see it from the point of view of a single mom who's like, hey, I don't get paid for a couple of weeks, but she has good credit and she had enough money to be able to afford a monthly payment. And yet, having talked to, I think she said close to a dozen heating and air companies, nobody even offered her a new one. And that was eye-opening.
Yeah. So if I'd have gotten that phone call, I would have handled it a little differently. I would say $900, huh? Yeah. Wow. I could put a brand new system in your house where you don't have to worry about that. And that would probably pay for almost 9 months of your monthly payment. And it's no money down. So we could put it in and your first payment won't be for another 30 days. And they're like, I love that though. You definitely have to look at it through their eyes and understand where their situation is. And that's the part that kind of scares me when I have this conversation. And when you started talking about refrigerant leaks, I think back on one of the jobs right here in this neighborhood that I'm living in, little old lady, another contractor had been taking care of this customer forever. He's been keeping it alive for years, right? And she gets a direct mail card. We did a lot of postcards back in the day. She got a direct mail card from us talking about some things that we were doing at the time. Making sure that all the rooms in the house were comfortable was one of the main points on this particular promotion she took advantage of. She called up. I went out there, took a look at it. And as I'm walking the house, it's a nice house, really old equipment sitting next to the house. I'm like, man, this thing's been needing to go for years. And we're sitting in the living room, and I had on one of the customer survey questions that I asked was, do you ever host any large group gatherings in your home? Now, you're never going to see that when you just walk in somebody's house. You have to ask the question. And she says, I do. Every Sunday afternoon, we study an old historical book with about 15 other ladies in this very living room. And I'm looking around and I'm like, man, Aaron, how do you do that? She says, I have a bunch of folding chairs over there in that closet. Okay. She says, and during the summer, I have to bring in 3 or 4 box fans to just keep these old ladies happy and halfway comfortable, because it's also a west-facing big picture window looking out over the river. And I'm like, she didn't know that. I'm looking at that. I'm thinking of the technology, technical stuff of it. And she was roasting her friends during the summer months because it was just too daggum hot there. I said, Mrs. Smith, and by the way, all my customers are Mrs. Smith, because I don't have to remember their names. I said, Mrs. Smith, if I put a thermostat right over this couch and can control this room by itself, would that be of interest to you? So you could have the temperature you want in this room during those Sunday afternoon book studies. Huh? You can do that? Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I could put a couple more thermostats and make your bedrooms a temperature. And we never talked about zoning. We talked about what it could do for her, right? And she bought a $13,500 upgrade to her home when her buddy that had been taking care, her guy, I got a guy, that guy, her guy had been taking care of this unit for years. He reaches out to me at our local contractor association, monthly meeting. He comes up to me, says, I got a bone to pick with you. I said, what's up, man? He said, Mrs. Smith over there? Yeah. I've been nursing that unit for years, and now you went in there and cherry picked the job, and she said she got a better price from you than she got from me. I said, oh, really? What was your price? He said, $3,500. I said, yeah, she got a much better price from me. He said, really? What was your price? I said, $13,500. What? How do you sleep at night? I said, very well, on a select comfort bed, and my bank account has money in it. Why? Right? Yeah. And he's like, what? How'd you do that? I said, well, how were you going to solve the problem she had in her living room? What problem? Well, she's got a bunch of women in the living room every Sunday afternoon, and they're sweating bullets during the summer. How are you going to handle that? Well, she never said anything about that. You didn't ask. That was a $10,000 question, right? Anyway, but that's the same kind of concept with technicians. A lot of times we go in and fix something thinking that we're the hero, and you are, don't get me wrong. But if the homeowner had been given other options, they might have actually made you even more of a hero.
So how do I get better at asking questions? As I ask a question, how do technicians get better at this skill? Because this really is a skill in a selling environment.
It is. Well, and number one thing is I hate scripted stuff, right? And I love the fact that you guys do this free form, because if we'd have scripted it, we'd have been reading stuff and, hi, my name is David. No, that's boring.
Can't have it.
That's not good, right? So you can have a planned approach without it sounding canned. Like if I gave you 3 choices back in the day, we did good, better, best. Today, we'd probably do good, better, best. We'd probably do basic, good, better, best kind of thing. But anyway, if we laid 3 choices in front of you, Mary, and you asked me, because you trusted me as a technician, well, which system do you recommend? Right? Which, if a technician is trusted, do you think homeowners are going to ask for their opinion?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Right. So we would say this, Mary, based on our evaluation of your home, this is the right size and type of equipment to properly heat and cool your house. I'll let you take a look at the page and answer any questions that you have. And when you looked at it and you said, man, this is a bunch of, these are big numbers, and you don't want to, you don't want to ask numbers questions. You just want to say, well, which system do you recommend, David? I'd say, Mary, at Holt Service Company, we truly believe all our customers deserve the best. And then let you ask the next question, right? And so how did we do that? Well, we sat around in a room and we said, what are the common questions that you get from customers? Okay, what should our standard response be to that question? If someone says, what do you recommend? That was the only authorized answer that any of my techs could give, or salespeople could give to a customer if they say, which do you recommend? At Holt Service Company, we truly believe all our customers deserve the best. So how do you get to where you can say that honestly, ethically, morally, all those kind of things, and confidently? Well, the only way you can do that is practice, right? You have to practice. Some people call it role play. I call it be smart and know how to run the play, right? Know how to run the play. You know what the question is going to be prepared to answer the question in a professional way. Don't try to wing it, because when you wing it, you're gonna fall on your nose and it's gonna hurt, right? You just don't want to do that. So have a plan. In fact, I love having a planned statements and responses document that my entire team works through and understands, so that if I stop you in the middle of the hallway and I say, hey man, I just offered 3 choices to the homeowner and they said, which one do you recommend? What's the answer? If they didn't say,
we truly, yeah.
If they didn't say at Holt Service Company, and I'm talking about looking at you in the eye the whole time, that's part of communication, right? Maintain eye contact, be confident in what you're doing. If I did it this way, Miss Carter, I'm supposed to say that you deserve the best, but that's really expensive, and I don't know if I did it that way, guess what? It's not going to work. And here's the interesting thing: when we first put a good, better, best type price book in the hands of our service techs, so they could have a repair or replace conversation without having to bring in a sales guy. When I first did that, to a person, I had 9 service techs, to a person, all 9 of them only sold the good systems.
Yeah.
Now, why? It's statistically impossible that every customer would buy the good system unless they were told to buy the good system by their trusted advisor.
Right.
Who so I said,
thinks
guys,
they're just doing a solid, right? Like they
exactly.
Think, yeah.
I'm trying to save you money, right?
Yeah.
Well, did they really, right? And so when I realized that, and it didn't take long to figure that out, I'm like, man, something's not right here. So I started asking them. I said, all right, show me how you present the price to the customer. Well, I just go out to my truck and look at the book, and I just write down the number on the service ticket and say, here's how much it costs to replace it. I said, so I'm gonna go back to the restaurant. Mary, I've got a menu, but I'm going to keep it back in the kitchen. What do you want? You don't even know what your options are. How uncomfortable are you now as a homeowner? If I said, well, how much do you want to spend? You'd be like, what? Wait a minute.
Nothing.
Yeah, exactly. I want to go find a restaurant that's got a menu they're going to hand me, right?
Yeah.
So when we handed them the menu, but then they were actually the problem was they weren't handing the customer the menu. They weren't following the process, because I sucked at training back then. But I learned real quick, I made an assumption. I'm producing this really nice, good, better, best menu so that you can show it to the customer. It's not stay in your truck. It's supposed to go in with you when they have that question. Now, don't take it in with you on the first part of the call. If they say, can you give me some idea what it would cost to replace it? Let me go out to my truck. I have to go get my book. All right. Because you don't go in like loaded to sell a job. You go in to fix it. That should be the first assumption. But once you find out through asking questions that they're interested in an upgrade or a replacement, then you bring out your price tool. You have the phraseology that you need to be able to communicate confidently. And amazingly enough, all of a sudden people go from selling $3,500 jobs to $12,500 jobs out of a service truck. Not because they're putting pressure on people, because they're giving people choices.
Yeah.
What do you think 2026 is going to look like? Like if you pull your crystal ball back out, because this is, I think, yeah, if you've got it handy there, 2024, pretty good year. And even kind of the pandemic, once everybody got their PPP and stimulus money came out and we kind of got over the initial hump of 2020, it was like people had money, they're spending it. That's held true for several years. Now it feels like people are starting to pull back. So 2025, if we just look at industry shipments, we'd say they're down. Lots of people picked repair. What do you think 2026 is going to look like? And then I guess maybe I've got a part B to that question, which is who are the contractors that are going to be successful in 2026 and who are the ones that won't?
Yep. Good question. So in my opinion, and we've seen this, I mean, I've been doing this a long time. When I was running Dad's business, I went through the R22 to R410A transition. So now I'm still here and I'm going through R410A to R454B or R32. It's like, oh my God. So I've seen a lot and I've seen economies come and go, right? I've seen 2008, we've seen a lot of different things happen. So I think I don't think we're on the verge of a collapse or anything like that, but I do think that with all the different variables that are coming into play, both sides of the table, from a contractor perspective and from a homeowner perspective, there's a high degree of discomfort about investing a lot of money in anything right now, whether it's cars, whether it's, vacations or whatever. People are kind of holding on right now, trying to see where is this going? Because, the tariff stuff, a lot of it I know is bluster and it's negotiating, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, some of it's real stuff that's costing us as consumers more money. I know the cost of equipment has ratcheted up tremendously. I mean, back in my day, I could buy a whole furnace for $350. Now you can't even buy the motor for one for $350. So the cost of equipment has risen dramatically. The unfortunate reality of most homes is the duct systems that we're connecting that equipment to are marginal at best, even when brand new, because they were installed by the least educated, lowest price, low bid residential new construction contractor the builder could find. Mm-hmm. And think about all those variables that say, oh, they're just going to slap this stuff in without balancing dampers. There's going to be cheap air distribution grill. I mean, the whole 9 yards. So we're hooking up a high-tech piece of equipment. If we hook it up to a marginal duct system, that high-tech piece of equipment ain't so high-tech all of a sudden. Right. And I know it's hard to stop a train, but the reality is if it doesn't get airflow, it'll stop just like that. It's not a problem. It's not the equipment. Yeah. It's not going to quit. It's not the equipment that was manufactured. It was the way that the equipment was applied that killed it. It was not the equipment. And the reality of all of those things kind of coming together and people being concerned about the quality of air and all the different things that people are getting a lot smarter about. The average sale price of a job these days has just skyrocketed. I mean, my average sale in 1998, my average sale in 1998 for our guys was $7,600 on a replacement job. Now, that was about twice the average of what people were selling jobs for in 1998. My dad sold the business in 99. And that was the last full year we had numbers. So I talk to guys today pretty regularly, and I ask them, what's your average sale price these days on replacement jobs? And I mean, I'm still talking to people that are still only selling $7,000 and $8,000 jobs, but the majority of them are well into 5 digits. I mean, 10, like the job I just did, and I paid freaking retail. I paid retail for it because I wanted the contractor to earn the money that he needed to earn. He's a friend of mine. I did not want to try to beat him up or, call on you guys and say, send me some equipment because you like me kind of thing. I didn't play any of those games. I bought at retail from this guy. My investment I made, because I ripped everything out. I'm talking ductwork and everything, because it was some of that residential new construction junk that I was talking about. I pulled out all that equipment, put in all new stuff, and high-tech controls, 3-zone system, yada, yada, yada. And it was a $34,000 project.
Wow.
I mean, that ain't chump change, right? Most people don't have $34,000 in their checkbook. And thank you, Synchrony. I didn't either. So speaking of Synchrony.
Yeah, we love our commercial finance partners, and there's a lot of them, and it's true.
It's huge. It's
consumer
a huge,
finance,
it's huge
rather.
piece.
Yeah.
People
Consumer.
if they're not leading with monthly payments, they're messing up right now out there in the field, I can tell you. But kind of getting back to your question, Stephen, I think the confluence of all those things, we will see an increase in repairs. We will see people trying to limp along a little bit until they feel a little bit more comfortable and a little more stable in their job position, and what the economy is really going to settle out and do, and so forth. So I do think we'll see more repairs. And kind of your B part of the question, who's going to make it, right? Who's going to make it? Those guys that have the attitude that the service department is a necessary evil are going to go the way of the dinosaur. I mean, the service department needs to be a very profitable part of your business. So you need to charge appropriately. If they're not using flat rate pricing systems to present their price, I mean, I've been preaching that since 1999 when my brother started a flat rate pricing service for contractors way back in the day. And I was working when Dad sold the business, we were both involved with implementing flat rate service pricing for an awful lot of contractors across North America. And so if they aren't, and there are still people, I find them when I go to these dealer meetings, I ask all the time, what flat rate service pricing system are you using? Huh? No, we're just on time and material. Really? What's your labor rate? We're at $90 an hour. Huh? I was at 125 in 1998. And I know people doing 400 and 500 today that are, I mean, literally in their flat rate price book, and customers are not running away from them. They're running to them because they do a good job taking care of their customers.
Right.
So it's like, you got to get paid what you're worth, right? You have to finally get paid what you're really worth. So the people that are going to win, they know what their cost of doing business is. They know what their profitability needs to be able to cover all of their overhead, their cost of doing business. They know what their cost of equipment is. They know what their cost of parts is. So they know what their job cost really is. They're charging accordingly. And part of that charge includes, I'm earning enough money as a business to continue to educate my people so I can empower and equip them with the tools and training they need to be the professional that our customers deserve. So the winners are going to be people that know how to run a service business. That's who the winners are. The people that think it's just a warranty department or it's just a necessary evil, they're going to struggle.
Yeah. That's so true. So repair versus replace, not a buzzword conversation. What it actually is a conversation to dive in with a homeowner or a potential purchaser to say, what do you want? What do you need? And then show them what they deserve. I like that as my power 3 here. Stephen, any other thoughts for you? And as we kind of wind this one down?
Well, one of the things that I'm super, super, super stoked about in the position that I'm in right now as Director of Education and Coaching at EGIA is, we have a long-standing relationship, obviously, with you guys, with your manufacturer and lots of others in the industry, only because our primary focus is helping homeowners be served in a way that does not disparage the rest of the industry. Right. I hate it when I see these stings that people do, these news channels, they're trying to be all nice about protecting the consumer from unscrupulous contractors. And there are some. I hate it. But those unscrupulous contractors are not the ones that show up at dealer meetings. They're not the ones that show up at training programs and they're not learning how to do it right. They're learning how to scam. So, the fact that we all, you guys, us, and others within the industry are all focused on trying to raise the level of professionalism within our industry is what gets me up every day. I mean, I should be retired right now, but I love it too much to stop doing it. As long as I have the ability to help others be better tomorrow than they are today, I'm going to keep doing it. And my team is dedicated to doing that. We're getting ready to do a strategic planning meeting here in a little bit where we're going to say, okay, how can we ramp it up even more? How can we help more contractors? How can we help more wholesalers be better tomorrow than they are today with one goal in mind, and that is to put a smile on homeowners, well, let's just say the consumer's face, whether it's residential or commercial, it's still a person. Because one thing hadn't changed all the way back from 1956 when my grandfather started our family heating and air business. The one thing that hasn't changed since 1956 is you guys as a manufacturer have not built a self-cleaning piece of equipment. So we got to keep it clean. You guys have not built a self-replacing piece of equipment, so we got to be there too. So it's a people business still. When we sell services to homeowners, that's us, right? That's our product as contractors. That hadn't changed. That's the one thing that hasn't changed. Equipment's changed, technology's changed, how we communicate. I love this, how we can do this instead of having to, show up at a trade show necessarily and speak to the only, group of folks that are there at the trade show. This will have a life that'll live for a while, and we'll be able to help a lot of people. So, I mean, I love the fact that all this is going on, and that's what gets me up every morning. So I appreciate the opportunity to share some ideas, some insights, and some history about what I've seen in this industry since, I've been doing this way too long.
Yeah.
50 years. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. Well, be careful, David. You might be giving engineering some ideas over here. But Stephen, any final thoughts?
No, that's good. Yeah, it's always good to kind of go into the new year thinking correctly about what are some of the big challenges and how we're going to tackle it.
Yeah. So have conversations, run some reps with some practice. I love the idea of owning the playbook, running the play. I know that I've said it before on this podcast, but I have sold more consumer financing programs to my dashboard in my car than I probably have to real people, but it's only because I say it out loud a lot. So
Practice.
yeah, it's a really good thing to do. And we're privileged because we get to practice here on the podcast with amazing guests like David. So David, thank you so much for your time. And if you have any questions for David to our listeners here, or if you want to get in touch with him, please shoot us an email at HVAC_full_blast at traintechnologies.com, and we'd be happy to direct it his way so that you can learn more about how to get in touch with him and his educational platform.
Yeah. Thanks for being here, David.
Yeah,
Have
man,
a great day.
appreciate it.
We'll catch you on the next one.